I have been running for a long time, not from something dramatic, not from this specific visible thing that the word running usually implies when someone uses it about themselves, not from failure, not from consequence, not from the particular pursuing quality of something that is behind you and gaining, from something quieter than that, something that doesn't chase, that doesn't gain, that simply waits in the specific patient way that certain things wait, that have nowhere else to be, that are not going anywhere, that exist in the interior and will continue to exist in the interior regardless of how fast you move, regardless of how full you keep the days, regardless of how completely you fill the available hours with the particular productive quality of someone who is building something. Always building something. The waiting thing doesn't care about the building, it waits. If you're watching this, it means I finally stopped. Not because the running became impossible, not because I ran out of road, not because something caught me and the catching forced the stopping. Because I chose to, in the specific, honest form that choosing looks like when it doesn't announce itself. When it arrives not as a decision with a clear moment, but as the particular interior exhaustion of someone who's been running long enough to understand that the running was never actually moving them away from the thing they were running from. It was only keeping them too occupied to feel how close the thing actually was, how it had always been, right there in the interior. Weighing. I want to tell you about the running, not the surface version, not the particular form it took in the visible days. In the schedule and the building and the particular forward motion of someone who always had somewhere to be and something to produce and the next thing assembled and ready before the current thing was finished. Not that version. The honest version, the one that required late hour and the quiet world. And the specific condition of someone who has finally run out of the energy required to maintain the momentum of the movement. That version, the running started before I knew I was running, that's the honest beginning, not a moment of decision. Not the specific conscious choice of someone who's identified the thing they don't want to feel and has organized their life around not feeling it. The running started as something else, as the particular quality of ambition, of direction, of the specific forward-facing quality of someone who has identified what they are building and is building it with the full quality of their available attention and energy. That's how it started. Real, genuine. The building was real. The direction was real. The particular quality of someone who was going somewhere was real. And underneath all of that, without my knowing it was underneath, the running was happening in the same motion as the building, in the same forward-facing direction, in the same hours. The building and the running were the same motion. For a long time, I didn't know there were two things. I thought it was only building. What I was also doing was this, moving fast enough that the thing in the interior didn't have room to become present. Not eliminating it, not the particular violence of someone who has decided the interior thing doesn't exist and is maintaining that decision against evidence. Just moving fast enough that the space it would need to be present was always occupied with the next thing, with the forward motion, with the particular quality of someone who is always building, always moving, always producing, always arriving at the next meeting, the next decision, the next version of what was being built. The space that the interior thing needed was never available. Because I killed it. Deliberately. Without acknowledging the deliberateness. The interior thing was not dramatic. I want to say that because the available narratives about running from things tend toward the dramatic, tend toward the specific quality of something terrible being avoided. Something shameful. Something that would, if fully faced, produce the particular destruction of the self-image. That's not what I was running from. What I was running from was quieter than that, more honest than that, sadder than that in a specific way. I was running from the particular quality of my own interior, not from what it had done, from what it was, from the specific honest size of it, the depth, the volume, the particular quality of someone whose interior runs at a register that most available contexts don't have room for, from the specific honest weight of the wanting, not the wanted things. The wanting itself, the full size of it. Because the full size of the wanting, when allowed to be its actual size, but not occupied by the movement and the building and the particular forward motion that filled the space the wanting needed to be present, is large, larger than the professional building, larger than the schedule and the metrics and the particular confirming quality of a life that is succeeding in the ways success is measured. Larger than all of it. The wanting is for something the building cannot produce. cannot confirm, cannot generate through the correct application of sufficient effort. And the size of the wanting, when fully present, is the specific honest weight of someone who has understood, not theoretically, what the building was always actually for, what the whole of it was in service of. I was running from that understanding, not from the wanting, from the understanding of its size, because the size of the wanting, when fully felt, when not occupied by the movement, is also the size of the distance between where I was and where the wanting was pointing, and that distance is uncomfortable in the specific, honest way that real distances are uncomfortable, not dramatically. Specifically, the particular interior quality of someone who can feel the full size of what they want and can feel simultaneously the full size of its absence, and that simultaneous feeling is what the running was from. I filled the distance with motion. That's the most honest version of what the running was. I filled the distance between where I was and where the wanting was pointing with a particular quality of movement that looks like it's closing the distance, but isn't. Movement towards something is not movement toward the wanting. The movement was real. The building was real. The direction was real. But the direction was not toward the wanting. The direction was away from the feeling of the wanting, which looks the same. From the outside, looks identical. Someone building, moving forward, making progress. The particular impressive quality of someone who is not still, who is not passive, who is not waiting, who is in motion, producing, building, arriving. That looks like someone moving towards something from the outside, from the inside. It was someone moving fast enough that the feeling of what they were not moving toward stayed below the level of presence until it didn't. The running has a specific moment, not a clean one, not a particular dramatic moment where everything shifts and the before and after are clear. The running has this specific moment where the motion is no longer sufficient, where the forward speed no longer keeps the interior thing below the level of presence, where something, a slowdown, a pause, a specific quality of stillness that the ordinary day produced without asking permission, creates the particular condition in which the interior thing rises to its actual level, and the actual level is higher. Then the motion had been keeping it. My moment was ordinary. I want to say that without apology. Not a crisis, not a breaking point in the dramatic form, not the particular announced quality of a significant moment. An ordinary Tuesday. The specific ordinary that I've learned to pay attention to, because the real things always arrive in the ordinary, never in the significant moments, always in the ones that don't announce themselves. I was in the opened hour before the day had assembled, before the second track had resumed, in the specific pre-functional quality of the early morning, and the motion was briefly not present, not because I had stopped it, because the hour was too early for the motion to have started. The motion starts after the functioning begins. In the opened hour, before the functioning, there is no motion. There is only what is actually there and what was actually there. In the specific, honest quality of that particular Tuesday morning was the interior thing. Not below the level of presence at its actual level, present, actually present in the full size. I didn't move away from it. That's the specific thing. Not because I prepared to stay, not because I've built sufficient presence to hold the actual size, not because the mornings have produced the particular quality of someone who would learn to be with what was actually there. Not for any of those reasons. Because in the specific, honest quality of that moment, the exhaustion was present. The particular exhaustion of running, that is different from the exhaustion of building. The exhaustion of building is the tired of productive effort, of having put something in and waiting for it to develop. That tired has a specific quality of rest in it, of having earned the stillness. The exhaustion of running is different. The exhaustion of running is the tired of someone who has been in motion, not towards something, away from something. And the motion away from something does not produce the particular quality of rest that motion towards something produces. It produces the specific depletion of someone who has been using their available energy not to build, but to maintain the speed required to keep the interior thing below the level of presence. That exhaustion was present in the Tuesday morning, in the opened hour, in the specific pre-functional quality. And the exhaustion was the particular condition that allowed the staying, not the strength. The exhaustion, the specific, honest depletion of someone who simply no longer had the energy to move away from the interior thing, who had run out of the particular resource that the running had been consuming, and was left in the stillness with what had always been there, at its actual size, what was actually there. I want to say this carefully, in the specific honest form that the opened hour makes available, not the dramatic version, not the particular quality of someone who has finally faced the terrible thing. What was there was not terrible, it was just real. The specific, honest reality of someone who has been alive long enough, and building long enough, and moving long enough to have accumulated, not damage, not the specific wound that the dramatic version of this requires, just the honest accounting of what the running had been running from. The honest accounting said this: I've been living in the periphery of my own life. Not in the dramatic form, in the specific, quiet form, the periphery that is produced not by absence, but by movement, by the particular quality always moving toward the next thing, the next meeting, the next decision, the next version of the building, always in the motion toward, and the motion toward keeps you in the periphery of what is actually here, because what is actually here requires the specific quality of stillness that the motion toward doesn't allow. The periphery looks like presence from the outside. That's the specific difficulty of it. It has all the external qualities of someone who is in their life, present, active, producing, showing up to the requirements, meeting the particular obligations that a life in motion produces and meets. It looks like a person who is in their life, from the outside, from the inside. It is the specific quality of someone who is adjacent to their life, moving through the space where the life is, without being in the life itself, and the particular honest sense of being in something. That requires the stillness, the actual presence, the first track running completely on what is actually here, not on the motion toward the next thing. The honest accounting said that. In the Tuesday morning, in the opened hour, in the particular exhaustion of the stopped running, and I sat in the saying of it, not with the particular productive quality of someone who has received information and is now organizing the correct response, to set, in the specific honest quality of someone who is finally, in the specific exhaustion of sufficient running, stopped. Not stopped in the permanent form, not stopped in the sense of having arrived somewhere, stopped in the specific sense of not moving away from the interior thing, but the first time in long enough that the not moving away had its own particular quality. A quality I didn't immediately recognize, because it had been long enough since I had been still enough to feel it. The quality of presence, actual presence for the actual interior, in the specific form that actual presence takes when the motion has stopped, and what was always there is finally being received, not processed, not converted into the material of the next decision, not organized into the forward motion, just received at its actual size. The interior thing, at its actual size, was not what I expected. I want to say that simply. The interior thing, that the running had been running from, that the motion had been keeping below the level of presence, that the accumulated years of forward movement had been filling the space of, was not what the running implied it would be. The running implied it would be unbearable. The specific quality of the motion, the particular investment in maintaining the speed, had implied that what was being avoided was the kind of thing that cannot be sat with. That requires the motion to remain manageable. That would, if allowed to be present at its actual size, produce something that the interior couldn't hold. It was not unbearable. It was just honest. The specific honest quality was been there the whole time, beneath the motion, beneath the building, beneath the particular forward-facing quality of a life that had been organized around movement, honest and present, and in the specific honest form that it took. When I finally stopped running long enough to feel it, it felt not like the thing to be afraid of, like the thing that had been waiting to be returned to, like the original interior before the motion, before the running, before the building and the schedule, and the particular quality of someone who was always going somewhere. Like what was always there, before the world taught me that what was there needed to be moved away from. Quietly. Actually, mime, if you're watching this, it means I finally stopped running. Not because I arrived somewhere, not because the running produced the destination, not because I found what the running was supposed to be building toward, because I understood in the Tuesday morning, in the opened hour, and the specific exhaustion of the stop motion that the thing I was running from was not behind me. It was in me. It had always been in me. And the running away from it was the running away from the most honest version of what it actually was. And the stopping was not the end of movement, was the beginning of the only movement that had ever actually mattered. Toward, not away, toward the interior, toward the actual size of what was there, toward the specific, honest quality of what I am, when I am not moving away from it. This is the beginning of that, not the middle, not the arrived at version. The beginning, the specific Tuesday morning of the stopped running. And what was found in the stopping? The stopping had a specific texture. I want to tell you about it honestly. Not the version that sounds like arrival, not the particular warm quality that certain kinds of stopping produce when they're described from the distance of having processed them into something legible. The actual texture from the inside and the specific quality of someone who was in it, not looking back at it, in it. The first texture was disorientation, not the dramatic kind, not the particular quality of someone whose entire orientation has been disrupted, something smaller, more interior, the specific quality of someone who has been organized around motion, who has built a particular structure of their days around the forward movement, who has developed through the accumulated years of the running, a specific relationship to stillness, which is that stillness is the space between motions, not a destination in itself, not something you inhabit, something you pass through on the way to the next thing, the particular pause that exists between the end of one forward movement and the beginning of the next. That is how stillness had been. Not a place, a transition, and in a Tuesday morning. In the opened hour, in the specific exhaustion of the stopped running, the stillness was not a transition. It was just stillness, with no next motion assembled, with no particular forward thing waiting on the other side of it. Just stillness, actual stillness. And the disorientation was the specific quality of someone whose interior had been organized around transition stillness, encountering actual stillness for the first time and long enough that the interior didn't know what to do with it, didn't know how to inhabit it, didn't know the specific quality of being in the stillness rather than passing through it. The second texture was quieter than I expected, not the stillness itself. What was in the stillness I had expected, not consciously in the particular way that the operating assumptions produced expectations without announcing them, that the stopping would produce noise, the specific interior noise that the running had been moving fast enough to keep below the level of presence. I had expected that the stopping would allow it to surface in the full volume, all at once. The particular accumulated noise of the interior thing, at its actual size. Arriving. It didn't arrive that way. What arrived was quieter, more specific, less like an accumulated noise and more like a single clear frequency. Not many things at once. One thing, clear. Specific, present at a level that the motion had been keeping below the threshold of audibility and into stopped motion. The threshold lowered. And the single clear frequency became audible. The frequency was this, longing, not the managed version, not the particular curated form of wanting that I had been carrying in the professional context, the organized form that said, I am building towards something. I am moving in the direction of what I want. The structure of the life is oriented correctly, the meeting is coming, the prayer is running, the patience is being maintained. Not that version, the actual version, the specific honest form that longing takes when it hasn't been managed into the productive form, when it isn't dressed in the particular costume of direction and purpose, and the patient quality of someone who is building toward rather than simply wanting. Just wanting. The wanting was present, at its actual size, in the Tuesday morning, in the opened hour, in this specific quality of the stopped running, and its actual size was what I've been trying to say in various forms across all the accumulated mornings, all the opened hours, all the parts of this that have been building toward the honest saying of it. The actual size was the whole of the interior, not a portion of it, not the particular portion that the management allows to be visible, the whole. I want to say what the whole feels like, not metaphorically, specifically, the whole of the wanting, at its actual size, in the stopped running, feels like an interior that has been running at a frequency that most of the available external world is not tuned to receive. Not a better frequency, not a more sophisticated frequency, just a different one. The particular frequency of someone whose depth runs to the level where the depth lives, whose volume is at the level where things actually matter, whose wanting is at the level where the wanting is honest, not managed onto the size that fits, not organized into the form that the available context can hold, just the actual frequency, running at the actual level, and the stopped motion. Audible, and what the whole of the wanting wanted, was not complicated. That's the specific thing that the stopped running revealed. The wanting was not complicated, not the particular sophisticated wanting of someone whose interior is unusually complex, not the wanting of someone who has needs that exceed the ordinary, simple. In the honest form, the wanting was to be in a life, not adjacent to it, in the specific quality of the actually lived, not deficiently moved through, not the productively occupied, not the particular forward-facing motion of someone who is always building something, just in it. In the ordinary moments, in the specific texture of days that are inhabited rather than moved through, in the particular quality of presence with another person that is not organized around the building of something external, but is simply present for each other, for the actual ordinary, the Tuesday morning quality, the drive home quality, the specific texture of an evening that doesn't have an agenda except the particular warm nothing of being in a life with someone who is also in it. That was the whole of the wanting, simple, ordinary, in the specific, honest form that the stop running finally allowed it to be. I sat with it not for the full hour, not for the particular extended quality of someone who is committed to the sitting. For the amount of time that the exhaustion allowed, which was more than the motion would have allowed. Not because the exhaustion produced the capacity, because the exhaustion had removed the particular impediment to the capacity, the motion, the specific forward movement that had been consuming the bandwidth the sitting required. The motion was resting, and in the rest of the motion, the sitting was available, not comfortable, available. What the sitting produced was not resolution. I keep saying that, and I want to say it again. Not because resolution isn't available, because it's not what the sitting is for. The sitting is not the particular productive quality of interior work that generates the resolved version, the processed and understood and arrived at version. The sitting is simpler than that. The sitting is just being with what is actually there. And what was actually there in the Tuesday morning, in the opened hour, and the stopped running was the wanting at its actual size. Simple, present, mind, and the sitting was simply being with it, not converting it, not organizing it, not running it through the particular management process that converts the actual interior into the form the external world receives. Just with it. Something arrived in the being with. Not a thought, not the particular conclusion of interior processing. Something that arrived the way the frequency had arrived. Quietly. In the specific, honest form of the pre-functional quality, before the second track had resumed, before the day had assembled its requirements, and the original morning, something arrived. It was a question, not the managed kind, not the particular interrogative that the second track produces when it has identified the appropriate question for the moment. The actual kind, the kind that rises from the actual interior, when the interior has been given sufficient stillness to produce what it actually has to say. The question was this: what would it feel like to stop running toward things and simply arrive? Not arrive at the destination. Not the particular quality of completion that arrival usually implies. Arrive in the specific sense of being actually here, in the actual moment, in the actual life. Not building toward the version of the life that exists on the other side of sufficient building, not moving fast enough to keep the interior thing below the level of presence, not organized around the next meeting, the next decision, the next version of what is being built, just here. Actually here, for the actual life as it is, right now, with the wanting at its actual size, and the honest distance to where the wanting is pointing, and the specific quality of someone who is in both of those things fully, without the motion filling the space between them. What would that feel like? I didn't answer the question. That's the honest version. The question arrived, and I sat in it. Not with the particular effortfulness of someone who's working toward an answer. With the specific quality of someone who has finally stopped moving long enough to understand that some questions are not asking for answers. They are asking for the specific quality of presence, that being actually in the question, rather than working toward an answer to it. Produces. The question was not, how do I arrive? The question was, what would it feel like? And the feeling is not produced by the answer. The feeling is produced by the stopping, by the specific quality of the stopped running, by the actual stillness that the actual interior can finally inhabit. When the motion has rested, the day assembled, eventually. That's the honest continuation. The particular forward motion did not stay rested. The requirements found their positions. The second track came back online. The professional version assembled and prepared for the meeting, for the call, for the particular forward-facing quality of a day that had things in it that needed to be done. The motion resumed, not identically. The motion resumed with a specific quality that was different from the motion before the Tuesday morning. Not dramatically different. In the interior, in the specific low frequency, something had shifted. The shift was this. The motion was no longer also the running. That's the specific, honest thing. Before the Tuesday morning, the motion was two things simultaneously, the building and the running, the same forward movement, doing both things without distinguishing them. Without my understanding that there were two things, the motion was the building and the running simultaneously, and after the Tuesday morning. After the stop running, after the particular exhaustion and the actual stillness and the specific honest quality of the interior thing finally allowed to be its actual size, the motion could be just the motion, just the building, without the running underneath. Not always, not perfectly, not in the clean, complete form of someone who has fully separated the two things and will never confuse them again, just more distinguishable, more often, the particular quality of someone who can feel the difference between moving towards something and moving away from something in the same motion, and is begun, slowly, without announcement. In the specific honest quality of interior changes, to move toward more than away, I want to tell you what moving toward feels like, not the concept, the actual feeling from the inside, in the specific quality of someone who has been moving away for long enough. That moving toward has a particular texture of newness, not unfamiliarity, newness, the specific quality of something that has been known before, in the original version, before the motion became the running, before the running became structural, in the version that existed before the accumulation had deposited enough information to produce the particular wisdom of someone who knows what things cost and has organized their life around managing the cost. The moving toward feels like, the original version of movement, before the cost management, before the architecture, before the particular careful deliberateness of someone who has learned to move only when the assessment has found the movement appropriate. The original forward, that didn't require assessment, that simply moved toward what was actually present, toward what was actually real, toward what the actual interior was actually drawn toward, without the overhead. That. It also feels vulnerable. I want to say that without the management, moving toward feels vulnerable in the specific honest form, not the performed vulnerability of someone who has decided that acknowledging vulnerability is the correct interior posture, the actual kind, the particular quality of someone who is moving in the direction of something they actually want, which means moving in the direction of something they could actually lose. And the losing of something you actually want is different from the losing of something you move toward only after sufficient assessment had found the movement appropriate. Because when the assessment was sufficient, what you were moving toward was already, in some sense, managed, reduced to the size that the assessment could confirm as appropriate, and you can only lose what is the actual size, not the managed size. The managed size loss is manageable. The actual size loss is the size of what you actually wanted. Moving toward feels vulnerable because what you could lose is at the actual size of sitting with that vulnerability, not resolving it, not converting it into the managed form. In the specific quality of someone who's stopped running and is learning, slowly, morning by morning, opened hour by opened hour, to be with what is actually there, including the vulnerability of moving toward, not despite the vulnerability, with the vulnerability, as the specific honest condition of someone who is no longer running from the actual size of what they want, who is instead carrying it, not lightly, honestly, and the full weight of its actual size. In a particular quality of someone who has finally stopped filling the space between here and the wanting with the motion that kept the wanting below the level of presence, who is instead standing in the space with the wanting, at its actual size and the vulnerability, at the actual size of the wanting, and moving toward, not away. The mornings were different now, not dramatically, in the specific interior quality, in the texture of the opened hour, the motion that used to be present, even in the early hours, even in the pre-functional quality, the particular low-level forward-facing energy of someone who is always moving, even in stillness, still moving. That motion is quieter now, not gone, quieter. And in the quieted motion, the opened hour has a different quality, more spacious, more honest, more genuinely pre-functional, in the specific sense of existing before the functions have assembled, before the second track has resumed, before the motion has restarted, in the actual stillness, that the stopped running has made more available, in the actual stillness. The interior thing is present, not below the threshold, not managed to the level that the motion had been keeping it. Present, at its actual level, which I have been learning, morning by morning, in the specific honest quality of the opened hour, is not unbearable, is not the particular terrible thing that the running implied it was, is simply the honest interior at its actual size, the depth, the volume, the wanting, the vulnerability of the wanting, the specific quality of someone who's carrying the actual size, without the motion filling the space it requires. All of it, present, running, at the actual frequency, in the actual presence of it, something is becoming available, not arrived, not the particular complete quality of something that has been found and can now be inhabited. Becoming available, the specific quality of someone who is more present for their own life, more actually in it, less adjacent, less in the periphery of the motion toward, more in the specific honest center of what is actually here, in the ordinary moments, in the actual days, in the particular texture of a life that is beginning, slowly, in the interior, in the quality of the stopped running, to be inhabited, not moved through. Inhabited. If you're watching this, it means I finally stopped running. Not because the running ended dramatically, not because something caught me, not because the road ran out, because the Tuesday morning arrived, in the opened hour, in the specific exhaustion of the running, and the interior thing was present at its actual size, and the particular honest quality of it was not the unbearable thing the running had implied it was the most honest thing I had encountered in the interior in a long time. The actual frequency, running at the actual level, saying simply, quietly, in the specific honest form of the pre-functional quality. You are more than the motion, you are more than the building, you are more than the particular forward-facing quality of someone who is always going somewhere. You are the interior that has been waiting, and the patient way of things that have nowhere else to be, for the motion to rest, for the running to exhaust itself, for the specific Tuesday morning, in the opened hour, when you finally stopped and found that what was waiting was not the thing to be afraid of, was the most honest version of what you actually were. Still there, unchanged by the motion, unchanged by the running, unchanged by the particular years of moving fast enough to keep it below the level of presence. Still there, at the actual size, waiting to be carried, not run from. The running leaves something behind, not damage, not the particular wound that the dramatic version of this requires, something more specific, more honest, more instructive. The running leaves behind the particular shape of what was being run from, like the specific impression that something makes in the ground when it has been resting in one place long enough. When the thing lifts, the shape remains, and the shape tells you more accurately than anything else could what was actually there, what the running was actually from, what the interior thing actually was in its honest form. What the shape told me was this: the running was not from the interior, not from the depth, not from the volume, not from the particular honest size of the wanting. The running was from the specific belief that the interior was too much, that the depth was a problem, that the volume required management, that the particular honest size of the wanting was something to be kept below the level of presence. Because if it were fully present, it would confirm what the accumulation had suggested, that the interior was more than the available world could hold. That belief is what I was running from. Not the interior itself. The belief about the interior, the specific operating assumption that had been running beneath emotion, beneath the building, beneath the particular forward-facing quality of all the accumulated years. That what I actually was too much for what was actually available. The stop running revealed the belief, not the interior, the belief about the interior, and the revelation in the specific honest quality of the Tuesday morning, in the opened hour, in the pre-functional stillness, was not dramatic, was not the particular cathartic quality of a long-held belief finally seen. It was quiet, specific, almost ordinary. The revelation was simply this. The belief was not accurate, not inaccurate in the way that false things are inaccurate, in the way that incomplete things are inaccurate. The belief had taken real information, the specific real information of an interior that runs at a frequency most available context and not tuned to receive, and had drawn the wrong conclusion. The real information was, most available context cannot hold this. The wrong conclusion was, therefore, the interior requires reduction. The actual conclusion, the one the stop running finally made available, was different, simpler, more honest. The actual conclusion was, most available context cannot hold this. Therefore, the right context has not yet been the available context. Not the interior is too much. The context has been too small. That distinction, small from the outside, was the whole thing. Was what the running had been running from, was what the Tuesday morning finally made present enough to see. The interior is not the problem. The interior is not too much. The interior is the specific, honest frequency of someone who runs at the level where things actually matter. And that frequency does not require management, does not require reduction, does not require the particular careful architecture of someone who has decided that the available world cannot hold what they actually are. It requires the right room, the right person in the room, the specific quality of someone who is tuned to the actual frequency, who receives the actual interior, not the managed version, who finds the depth, not too much, but exactly what they were looking for, without knowing that was what they were looking for, until they found it. I am still being found. That is the honest location of where this is, not arrived. Not the particular complete quality of someone who has stopped running and immediately found the right room. Still being found. Still in this specific, honest middle of the becoming. Still in the mornings. In the open hour, building the quality of presence that the right room will require. Building the capacity to be actually in the life. Not adjacent to it. Not in the periphery of the motion toward. Actually in it. But something is different in the specific interior quality. In the low frequency. Beneath everything. Something is different from before the Tuesday morning, before the stopped running, before the particular exhaustion that became the stillness that became the honest presence of the interior thing at its actual size. What is different is the motion. The motion is still present. The building is still happening. The forward-facing quality of someone who is going somewhere is still real. But the motion is no longer also the running. The motion is just the motion. And the running has stopped. If you're watching this, it means I finally stopped running. Not perfectly, not permanently, not in the clean, complete form, in the specific, honest form of someone who has run long enough to understand what the running was and has chosen, not in the dramatic form, in the quiet Tuesday morning form, in the opened hour, in the exhaustion that became the stillness, to carry the interior instead at its actual size, without managing it below the level of presence, without filling the space it needs with emotion that kept it inaudible, just chairing it toward, not away, in the specific honest quality of someone who is finally, actually, here. This is where I am, not at the end, in the honest middle, still becoming, but no longer running from what I'm becoming toward